Okay, so the second operation, or the second property that we're going to look at in terms of solving basic equations, is the multiplication property of equality. So the multiplication property of equality says this: if A equals B, then A times C equals B times C, or A divided by C equals B divided by C, assuming that C is not equal to 0. And that has nothing to do with solving equations, it has to do with the fact that you're never allowed to divide by 0. So just like with the addition property of equality, we saw that we can add the same number to both sides, we can subtract the same numbers to both sides, and similarly, we can multiply or divide the same number to both sides. So what are we going to do? Our procedure in this section, we want to simplify each side of the equation by combining like terms. And we're actually going to focus on the division step in terms of the multiplication of property of equality. We're going to divide each side by the coefficient. We want to divide by the coefficient. We do not change the signs, we divide by whatever the number is in front. Finally, check your answer by plugging the result back into the original equation. So let's look at some basic examples. If we look at example A, we have 4s equals 24. So, 4 times what equals 24? We should get s equals 6. So how do we get from 4s equals to 24 to s equals 6? Well, remember 4s, this is 4 times s, and what is the opposite of multiplying by 4? It is dividing by 4. How do we get from 24 to 6? Same thing. We divide by 4. So notice that in order to get s by itself, we're going to divide by 4, and whatever we do to the left side, we do to the right side. Let's try a couple more basic examples. Let's look at example B. Example B, in order to get x by itself, I want to get rid of the 5 times. So to get rid of multiplying by 5, I divide by 5. Whatever I do to the left, I do to the right. On the left side, my 5's cancel, leaving me with just x. On the right side, we get 25 divided by 5 is 5. Okay, let's go ahead and bring in some negatives now. Example C, we want to get w by itself. To get w by itself, I want to get rid of the negative 6. So this is negative 6 times w. I'm going to divide by negative 6. Note that we do not change the sign. We divide by whatever the coefficient is. So if we do this, we get 42 divided by negative 6 is negative 7. On the right side, my 6's cancel, my negatives cancel as well, leaving me with just w. So we get w equals negative 7 for our solution. A couple other examples. Let's look at example D. Example D, we have 27 equals negative 9p. To get p by itself, I want to get rid of multiply by negative 9, so I'm going to divide by negative 9. 27 divided by negative 9 is negative 3. My 9's cancel, my negatives cancel as well, and on the right side we are left with just p. So our final answer is p equals negative 3. All right, example E. This one, we want to get x by itself, so I want to get rid of the minus in front. And remember that if there's no number written there, it is implied to be a negative 1. So what we have here is negative 1x equals 5. To get rid of the coefficient negative 1, we're going to divide both sides by negative 1, and we get x equals negative 5. Okay, last of our basic problems, let's look at negative y equals negative 8. Similar to the last problem, remember that if there's no number, it's implied to be a negative 1. So the equation we're looking at is negative 1y equals negative 8. I can divide by negative 1 to both sides, and we get y equals 8. Alright, so there are some basic problems involving the multiplication property of equality. Alright, let's look at some more problems that are going to be a little more complicated. Let's start off with example G. We have 4y minus 7y equals negative 12. So the first thing we're going to do in this set is we're going to go ahead and simplify each side of the equation. So for example G, the first thing I want to do is I want to combine my 4y and my minus 7y. 4y and negative 7y combine to give me negative 3y. The right side of the equation stays the same. And then now I want to divide by the coefficient, so I'm going to divide both sides by negative 3. On the left, my 3's cancel, my negatives cancel, leaving me with just y. And negative 12 divided by negative 3 gives me positive 4. Remember that our negatives cancel, and so we get 12 divided by 3 is 4. And we're done. Let's try a couple more. Let's look at example H. We have negative 28 equals negative 6n plus 10n. First thing I'm going to do is combine my like terms on the right. Negative 6 and positive 10, we have different signs, so we're going to combine. We're going to subtract and keep the sign of the larger number. We get 4n equals negative 28. Finally, to get n by itself, we're going to divide by 4 on the right and do the same thing to the left side. So we get negative 28 divided by 4 is negative 7 equals, my 4's cancel on the right, and we're left with n equals negative 7. All right, two more. Let's look at 3 minus 10 plus 7 equals h plus 7h. All right, on the left side, if we combine, we get 3 minus 10. We have different signs, so we're going to subtract and keep the sign of the larger number. Gives us negative 7 plus 7 is 0. Don't freak out yet. On the right, we get 1h plus 7h equals 8h. We can go ahead and divide by 8. And remember, this is not the problem one. We can do 0 divided by 8. 0 divided by 8 is 0. On the right side, my 8's cancel, leaving me with just h equals 0. All right, last problem. Let's look at p minus 14p equals negative 2 plus 18 minus 3. On the left, if we combine our like terms, we have 1p minus 14p equals negative 13p. On the right, if we combine this, negative 2 plus 18 is 16. Minus 3 is 13. Last step, we want to go ahead and divide by the coefficient. We're going to divide both sides by negative 13. On the right side, my 13s cancel, my negatives cancel. I am left with P equals 13 divided by negative 13 is negative 1. And that takes care of our multiplication property of equality.